بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. We first start with inshallah, let's correct our niyyah that we are here learning, reading, and listening for the sake of practice, inshallah, so that we can change our lives and so that we can know how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better and how to live our lives as a proper Muslim. And obviously after that to disperse and disseminate the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yesterday we spoke of certain etiquettes from after Salatul Fajr until Zawal. So we were in the middle of that, and Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah spoke of 4 things that we should involve ourselves in during the daytime. And we spoke of the first one, and that was to engage in beneficial knowledge. And he was in the middle of talking of beneficial knowledge. So he said beneficial knowledge was that which increases a person in their fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in awareness of their own faults, in their desire for the hereafter, and in their lack of desire for dunya. He spoke briefly about the evil qualities of the evil ulama who trade the hereafter for the deen. And this would apply to anyone who has any bit of knowledge and prefers dunya over that amount of knowledge. Then he finally spoke of after gaining this type of knowledge, one should engage also in gaining the knowledge of fiqh, because the knowledge of fiqh will enable one to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly, as well as guide others in doing so. So today he says, وَإِن جَرَّبْتَ نَفْسَكَ مُدَّةً فِي الْأَوْرَادِ وَالْعِبَادَاتِ وَكَانَتْ لَا تَسْتَثْقِلُهَا كَسَلًا عَنْهَا ولكن ظهرت رغبتك في تحصيل العلم النافع ولم ترد به إلا وجه الله تعالى والدار الآخرة فذلك أفضل من نوافل العبادات مهما صحت لك النية ولكن الشأن في صحة النية. So he spoke, the last thing we actually talked about was if a person is unable to do what we already mentioned in the past, all the types of ibadat, all the types of dhikr, and they feel content with only gaining the knowledge of deen without practice, then this is one of the tricks of shaitan. Today he says that if you see that you actually enjoy doing all these types of worship that we already mentioned, all of the dhikr, all of the du'as, all of the etiquettes, if you find yourself persevering and continuously doing that, and you don't find yourself being lazy in fulfilling those rites and fulfilling those etiquettes, and you also find within yourself that you want to gain a lot of knowledge. So you have 2 opposite factors within your heart. You feel like you want to give all of your time for ibadah on one side. However, on the other side, you feel like you want to give a lot of time for the gaining, for the acquisition of Dini knowledge. So you have both of these, and you just don't have time to do both, but you want to do both. And the only niyyah, you are 100% sure that your niyyah is for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and success in the hereafter. He says that if you find yourself in such a situation, then you can spend a lot of your time in knowledge. So for such a person, gaining knowledge or spending a lot of a good portion of their time in knowledge is okay because of that niyyah, because once they're finished with the acquisition of knowledge, they're just going to go back and start doing their ibadah again. So for such a student of knowledge, it is recommended to decrease the amount of ibadat, but not completely diminish the amount of ibadat. And we're talking about nawafil here. We're not talking about farad. Farad is for everyone. It's an absolute must. But in terms of performing long rak'at of tahajjud, you can make them very mukhtasar, very short, for the sake of taqwiyah and strength, for the sake of gaining dini knowledge. So this is all advice that he's giving for students that are studying the deen. They should actually decrease a certain amount. That's why some of the mashayikh, the teachers, they'll always say Don't fully engage in ibadah when you are gaining the knowledge of Deen. But sometimes students take that incorrectly, and what they do is they're not fully learning the knowledge of Deen. They don't apply themselves 100%, and they have a lot of free time, and they don't fill that free time up with ibadat. If a person is studying Deen and they have a lot of free time, that means either you're not studying the Deen properly because it requires 100% of your effort, or you need to focus more on ibadat. So if a person is unable to study for long hours when they are a talib al-ilm, then they should fill that amount of time with ibadat. Anything else other than ibadat and studying the deen for a student of knowledge is detrimental, except for necessities, eating, drinking, sleeping, using the restroom. A little bit of exercise is also necessary on a daily basis, and some, getting fresh air, things of that nature. But doing too much of extra stuff is detrimental for a student of knowledge. So he's saying that you have to be very careful. And if you do find yourself that you really want to do a'mal, but because of the a'mal, your knowledge is getting decreased, you're not giving it your all, then you can decrease that in order to have a lot of knowledge. And then he says that if your niyyah is not correct, then you are being deceived by shaitan. And this is where many people slip, many people make mistakes because they just don't engage in ibadat, and nor do they really want to. So the best thing for a person, if they are trying to acquire the knowledge of Deen, you're a student of knowledge, is to break up your day into portions. The amount of time that you have for your classes, obviously you have to be, present for your classes. And then afterward, give yourself ample amount of time for studies, for revision, what's called mutala'a, revision, or reviewing the next day's lesson, or muraja'a, going over what you've already done, all of that. You need to give yourself ample time for that. And then there's extra mutala, extra studies. So you have supporting books. So if you're studying a book in fiqh, then there's other commentaries that you should be reading, engage in that. And then whatever time remains, split that up into your necessities, dealing with whatever is exercise, eating, resting, sleep, and then the rest, whatever remains, should be engaged in nawafil, nafil ibadat. So this was his advices for the talib al-ilm. Then he moves on to the second stage, the person who, remember he says there's four people in regards to how to spend your time in the daytime. So the second individual, or the second condition, ألا تقدر على تحصيل العلم النافع. For a person, he's unable to gain beneficial knowledge of Deen. They don't have the ability to go out and seek that knowledge. However, they can busy themselves with worship. So they're unable to become a student of Deen, but they do have enough time where they can engage in worship. They can do dhikr, they can do qira'ah, they can do tasbih, they can do salah. They have time for all of this. So this is not the daraja or the level of the ulama. The highest level clearly is the ulama who practice upon the Deen. That is the highest level a person can be in terms of utilizing time wisely. But this person, he's unable to gain knowledge. So this person, Imam al-Ghazali says, فَذَلِكَ مِنْ دَرَجَاتِ الْعَابِدِينَ وَسِيَرِ الصَّالِحِينَ وَتَكُونُ بِذَلِكَ أَيْضًا مِنَ الْفَائِزِينَ. So this is the level, the station, the position of the pious and the worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if a person engages in this level, then they will also be successful. So, and when it comes to knowledge, they will just have to resort to an alim, a person that has gone and got the knowledge of Deen. This person would go and ask them, okay, I have this issue. How do I give my zakat? He learns whatever is his necessities, and then he goes back and engages in worship again. So this is also a very good thing to do, engage in worship. And all you would do is you would see your free time, and you would break that up into what you can do in terms of du'as or dhikr, of remembrance of Allah, or salah, or recitation of Quran. And so then your day would revolve around that, as well as, whatever you have to engage in for the necessities of life. So this is the second stage that he says that is very beneficial for a person to do in the daytime. Al-halatu thalitha. Now the third category of people is that he's unable to gain the knowledge of Deen. So he's not a talibul ilm. And this person is not is not busy in the worship of Allah. They just cannot spend that much time in the worship of Allah. They just don't find that strength within themselves. So he says that you should busy yourself in giving out khair to the believers. Busy yourself in works, good things that will aid believers, and do such an action which will create happiness in the hearts of believers. Or you do such an action which will allow other people, other Muslims, to do worship. So this sounds like a lot of what's called charity work, or something where you are benefiting other believers. You're doing something that allows you to help other people and they can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he gives an example: كخدمة الفقهاء والصوفية المحققين وأهل الدين. So an example of this is doing the khidmah or the service of the fuqaha or the sufiya al-muhaqqiqin. And these are ulama. The sufiyas are a type of ulama like the fuqaha, and the ahlul din, people who are busy in doing the works of deen, you aid them. So this is the third best thing. If you cannot be an alim, you cannot be a worshipper of Allah, then help those who are in the path and doing the work of deen. والتردد في أشغالهم والسعي في إطعام الفقراء والمساكين, helping the poor, feeding the poor, giving them some aid, financial aid, helping the sick, visiting the sick, doing those types of works. وعلى الجنائز بالتشييع, so if there's a janaza, then you are there in the janaza. So doing other good works and doing community service types of acts. فكل ذلك أفضل من النوافل فإن هذه عبادات وفيها رفق بالمسلمين. So he's saying that this is actually better than just nawafil. Even though the second category was just purely worship, he's saying this category, even though it's the third category, it's still a very, very good category, because a lot of these actions outweigh in the scales of how much, how valuable that deed is. They are better than some of just pure nawafil. Why? Because you're doing an action which is rewardable and you are helping another Muslim. So in doing such an action, you actually have a double reward. So this is also the third category. This is what we should involve ourselves in during the day. And really, number 2 and number 3 can be joined. A person can be busy in worship, and whenever they hear that a brother or sister is in need, they can help them financially. They can help the poor, they can feed the poor, they can visit the sick, they can be present for salawatul of janazah, and do khidmah. So khidmah is a very, very rewardable thing to do, helping people when they require that help. That is something that's very rewardable. So that is the third thing that we should engage in during the daytime. And al-halatu rabi'ah, the fourth thing. He says, if you are unable to do such, you're not able to do any of the previous 3, and you are busy with your own necessities. So this is where many of us fall in. On a daily basis, we're mostly busy with our own necessities, and that is working so we may receive wages, we may receive our salary, so that we can spend it on ourselves, our families, and also help others. So this is what he's referring to here, that you busy yourself with your own necessities, اكتسابا على نفسك وعلى عيالك, so that you spend on yourself and your family. وقد سلم المسلمون منك. And one condition for this, the fourth category, is also a very praiseworthy category, a person that earns halal wealth and he's spending it for himself and his family. However, the condition is that other Muslims are safe from your evil. So you are not causing any type of harm to any other individual. That is the condition. And obviously it's talabul kasb al halal. You have to earn a halal wage. If you are busy in gaining haram earnings, then we have to find a way out. We have to make mashwara with individuals, perhaps speak to the Imam and ask, how can I find a way out, because I'm involved in riba, or I'm involved in selling something that is impermissible, alcohol, etc. Some brothers find themselves in that, and they got into it, at a time when they were not very conscious of their deen or conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and now they want to get out. So that is a very praiseworthy thing, to want to get out, to want to do tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a big ni'mah, because there are many people in the world who don't even have that understanding that they should get out of this. So for such an individual, they should do mashwara on how to slowly transition from haram into halal. So the condition for, the condition of the fourth one, the fourth thing we should engage in, is that it must be halal wages that you're earning, and you must not harm any other individual. Then you will be in a praiseworthy condition. وَأَمِنُوا مِنْ لِسَانِكَ وَيَدِكَ وَسَلِمَ لَكَ دِينُكَ. So he's talking about other conditions also. Your tongue cannot hurt anyone, nor can your physical hands. So when we talk about harming other people, you cannot be engaging in such a affair in the daytime, whatever your job is. You cannot backbite people, you cannot slander people, you cannot speak bad. And this is a very integral part of our deen, protection of the tongue, hifdhul lisan. Unfortunately, we live in a society where that is abused greatly. Oftentimes we find ourselves joking so often that we don't even realize that the jokes that we make is contrary to the teachings of Deen. Sarcasm is not something that our Deen even condones. Look in the Quran, many times when the Anbiya alayhimus salam are confronted by their nations, they can retort back in sarcasm, but they never do. They're very honest, they're very clear, and the clear-cut statements. They say that, we are just the Anbiya alayhimus salam, and that's all. They could easily say something back in types of sarcasm, but they don't. So as a believer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ittaqullah wa qulu qawlan sadida. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and speak a very clear speech. So we have to fear Allah when it comes to our speech. So he's saying here, if you are going to engage in earning wages and things like that, be very careful of your tongue. Be very careful that you don't physically harm anyone either. And be very careful also that no one affects your deen. Whatever your job may be, the main thing in your life is your deen, your religion, your duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So make sure that whatever you're doing, it's not going to affect your actual deen at the end of the day. So what does that mean, affecting your deen? It means that if part of your job is to do some type of sin, then that affects your deen. You are basically trading your dunya, your akhirah for your dunya, because you know that you're not supposed to be engaging in this sin, but for the sake of earning wages, for the sake of earning some money, some what you believe is halal, you're committing a sin. So that would be impermissible, and you're trading your akhirah for your dunya. So he says, if you do all of these correctly, you're going out, you're working. He says, فَتَنَالُ بِذَلِكَ دَرَجَاتِ أَصْحَابِ الْيَمِينَ. You will be considered amongst Ashabul Yamin. And this is a very lofty title that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about in the Quran. We find this in Surah Al-Waqi'ah as well, Ashabul Yamin. They are obviously not on the level of Sabiqeen. There are three different groups mentioned in some surahs. The highest is the Sabiqeen. Then you have the Ashabul Yamin. And then you have the third category, which is Ashabul Shimal, which we do not want to be part of. So the categories that we do want to be part of are two. So the Sabiqeen are those who are just fully engaged in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether that's worship or attaining knowledge and practicing preaching. And then Ashabul Yamin, which is a very good title, is a person that they can still be working, they can still be earning a living and still be part of this category. So then he says, وَهَذِهِ أَقَلُّ الدَّرَجَاتِ فِي مَقَامَاتِ الدِّينِ. This is, you should at least be amongst Ashabul Yamin. When it comes to your deen, you should not harm people, you should speak the truth, you should avoid that which is haram, and inshallah you will be amongst the Ashabul Yamin. This is the least that we should aspire for, and we should really aspire to be amongst the Sabiqeen. Anything beyond this, فَهِيَ مِن مَرَاتِعِ الشَّيَاطِينَ. This is the you can't use the word garden here, but where a person grazes, he says this is the grazing yard of the shayateen. Anything beyond the Ashabul Yamin, if you fail to become that, then you are grazing with the shayateen. And this is actually what you would be doing is that you would be destroying your deen. If you're unable to become ashab al-yamin and stay and do everything that is halal, then you're destroying your deen. So he's saying فَهَذِهِ رُتْبَةُ الْحَالِكِينَ, and this is amongst the halikin. We spoke of the halikin in the beginning. Who were the halikin? فَإِيَّاكَ أَن تَكُونَ فِي هَذِهِ الطَّبَقَةِ. Be very cautious that you're not in this. So if we do find ourselves that we often are slandering people or doing backbiting, when we find ourselves with our friends, we backbite a lot, or if we are engaged in earning halal or haram income, I should say, haram income, or doing anything that is haram, that is very dangerous, and this is the perfect time for us to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in tawbah. Then he says, وَعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْعَبْدَ فِي حَقِّ دِينِهِ عَلَى ثَلَاثِ دَرَجَاتٍ. When it comes to a person and their connection to their deen, there are three types of people. Three types of people when it comes to how serious they are in their deen. So he says, number one is called Salim, number two is called Rabih, and number three is Khasir. So who are these three people? Number one, Salim. Salim is a person, Salim means you are safe. So you're safe when it comes to your deen. That is when you are fulfilling your fara'id and you don't engage in haram. You don't engage in that which is prohibited. So you are salim, inshallah, because you're not doing anything extra. You're just doing your fara'id, your 5 times salah, your saum, your zakat, your hajj, and whatever you must do, and you're avoiding what you're not supposed to do. Then alhamdulillah, that is a very great thing. What we often find, even with ourselves, what we find is that we're not exactly salim. And why is that? Because we just do the fara'id, but we engage in sin also. So it just cancels out. So we're no longer salim. We're no longer safe because we're engaging in sin. So the salim is a person, he doesn't do sin. That's the main thing. And he is engaging, he fulfills all of his fara'id. One of my teachers used to say that we often read stories of the awliya, and we say that, how do you become amongst the awliya? It's so, it seems insurmountable to reach how they've reached and to worship like they worship. And he said, in today's time, if you want to be a wali, just don't sin. Fulfill your fara'id and don't sin. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make you amongst his awliya. And that's all we have to do in today's time, because sin has become so available, so readily, rampant around us. We have the ability to do sin everywhere we are. We have a phone in our pockets that allows us to look at anything, to speak to anyone, to do so many things. So if we avoid sin, then that is a very high level. So that is salim. Number two is rabih. Rabih in Arabic means someone who is profiting. So he's not only safe, he's actually gaining profit. وهو المتطوع بالقربات والنوافل. This is a person, he does his fara'id, he avoids the haram, and he does extra nawafil. They do extra nawafil, extra actions, extra charity, extra fasting, extra salah, all of that. And then the third category, khasir. Khasir in Arabic means a loser, someone who is harming themselves. وهو المقصر عن اللوازم. This is a person who is unable to do that which is compulsory upon them. Either they're not fulfilling the fara'id or they're engaging in sin. So these are the three categories that he put people in. And we find ourselves often that if we actually have to look in retrospect and think like, okay, which one am I? Sit for a while and ask yourself, am I salim? Am I rabih? Or am I a khasir? Oftentimes we might even say that, we're actually a khasir, because we're doing our fara'id, we're doing extra nawafil as well. We may be doing tahajjud, we may be doing extra saum, but what we do is we ruin that with sin. So by doing so many extra sins, and everyone sins, that's something that we have to make clear, that even a rabih, he sins also. But there's a difference between sinning on purpose and sinning by mistake. Sinning by mistake, every insan will do. There's a hadith, كل بني آدم خطاء وخير الخطائين التوابون. Every single individual amongst the children of Adam alayhi salam, every human is a person that does khata. He makes great errors, he makes mistakes, he makes sins. And the best amongst them are those who do tawbah. So everyone does sin. That's we can't get away from it because we're just a manifestation of error. That's how we are. Human beings just make errors. But there's a complete difference between us choosing to do so and it just happening. So a khasir is a person who chooses habitually they are doing sin. So the ulama actually say that israr ala saghair kabira. So when you talk about sins, this conversation about categorization of people comes in when talking about who is a fasiq. And this is a very bad term in Deen. A fasiq is a person who is an open sinner. And this person is very looked down upon in terms of Sharia because they sin just so openly. You can't even accept their testimony in court. In an Islamic court, you wouldn't be able to accept their testimony because of their open sinning. So a fasiq is a person who sins openly. So the scholars say that what makes a person a fasiq? Yes, an open sin that you don't care who's watching you and you're sinning. That's one. Another thing is that when a person does any type of kabir, a kabir sin. So the kaba'ir, they're very famous. Those sins that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has stipulated in the hadith, that which we also find in the Quran, things like zina, things like saraqa, stealing, harming others. These are the major sins. So if a person does these major sins, they become a fasiq. If they do tawbah, inshallah, that is forgiven. That is number two, right? So number one was sinning openly. Number two is doing one of the major sins. Number three is a person who is habitual of doing minor sins. That also includes a person to become a fasiq. So that's very dangerous when we have bad habits. And we all know what we are doing in terms of our bad habits. When these are habitual sins, and we do this on a daily basis, even if we think that they're small, they contribute towards a person becoming a fasiq. So a person may be actually performing a lot of nawafil, keeping a lot of fasts, doing a lot of extra ibadat, but they could also be in this category of khasir because of the sins. So the main thing is fara'id and avoidance of sin. If you can do that, then that is, you deserve to be congratulated because that is a very beautiful thing. You would at least be salim, and then you can work on being a rabih. And this is a lesson that we should really take, because oftentimes when we think about who is a pious person, the image comes to our mind, a person who's doing a lot of ibadat. He's reading 5-10 juz of Quran on a daily basis, or he or she is fasting continuously, praying a lot of salah. But the thought never comes in our mind that it's a person who's avoiding sin. Truly a pious person is a person who avoids sin. So this is the definition of piety, is actually avoidance of sin. And that is something we should all work on more so than our nawafil. Nawafil can be added on later. What's the point of us trying to jump to the station of rabih when we haven't even became salim? If we are khasir, and I'm speaking about myself, if we're khasir, how can I jump to rabih? It doesn't make sense. We have to first get to salim. And how do I get to salim? Just do my fara'id and avoid all sin. Once I have become perseverant on that, and I can keep doing this, and this becomes my habit, now I can start working hard on becoming one of those rabihin, amongst those who are profiting in their dunya and their akhirah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq to at least become salim, and then give us tawfiq to jump towards the rabih. So the salim are like the ashabul yameen that is spoken about in Surah Al-Waqi'ah. The rabih is the sabiqeen. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that tawfiq, and may He accept our a'mal and forgive our sins, and give us tawfiq to truly worship Him the way He wants us to worship Him in this blessed month. جزاكم الله خيرا. وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.